Can you imagine paying car notes every single month for the rest of your life and never really owning a car? How's it going, guys? My name is Alex Davalos. Welcome back, and today in my persuasive speech I'm going to be telling you why purchasing a car is smarter than leasing one. So some of the points that I'm going to be touching today is the good and bad things about leasing, why you should avoid leasing at all times, big charges whenever it comes to whenever you're done with your lease contract, why people keep car leasing, what can we do to stop people from making the mistake and signing lease contracts, and why is it so hard for people who are already into a lease contract, leave early. So I'm going to be talking first of all about the pros and the cons in leasing. Very few pros. The very first one would be the obvious one. Lease payments, of course, they're always going to be smaller than an actual payment whenever you're going to own something. You also get a new car. It all depends on your contract again. If you made it for every 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, so if you made it for 1 year, you would be getting a new car every single year. No hassles at the end of the lease. That all depends on how you took care of the car. If you took care of it real good and no scratches, no everything, you should be no worries, whenever you're returning the car. Some of the cons, which is why you should avoid leasing, are first of all, you never own a car. You could keep leasing for the rest of your life and you will never have a car that you call yours and have a title to it. Also, penalties for wear, tear, and mileage. For the wear and tear, that would be basic stains, little dent or scratches outside the car, the tires are going bad, little things like that. They could charge you for anything since the car is not yours. And that would go to the next con, which is the added cost for those things. Another thing would be the endless payments that you're going to be making on a lease car. You finish a year, you go on to the next one, and by the time you know it, you're already 15 years in and you're leasing a car, and you didn't even, all that money's been gone for that many years and you still don't own a car. Why you should always buy a car. So this is the big main point that I'm going to be telling you about, and why you should never look into leasing a car. At the end of the day, the car will be yours. You could sell the car back whenever you finish paying it off. You could sell it. If you do a pretty good purchase and you know what you're buying, the value could stay in the car, and you can even make the value go up by doing certain things to the car and sell it for more than half than what you paid for, which is money. It's profit from there, because if you were leasing a car, that money would be gone. Another thing would be unlimited miles. You don't have to worry about passing up a certain amount of miles and you're getting charged for that. So you're gonna have the freedom to use as many miles as you want whenever you're buying a car, of course. Also, the freedom to sell or trade whenever you're done paying off the car. This goes back to the second point, is just selling the car whenever you want to, not having to bring it back to wherever you rented it from. So on this slide, I'm gonna be telling you about the details, costs, and charges when it comes to leasing. This right here, not that many people know of whenever they sign a lease contract. The very first one would be, if you're over the miles, the charge is 15 cents per mile for the cheapest vehicle, which would be an example. You get a little Honda, the cheapest Honda, which would be a Fit, I believe, and 40 cents for a luxury vehicle, which would be BMW or Lexus. So you're paying almost half a dollar for every single mile that you go over. And miles, of course, they get added up pretty quickly. Again, another one would be the normal wear and tear when returning a vehicle, and that could run up to $5,000. So you're looking at little dents. They look at everything whenever you return a car, just to charge you for it. Another one would be potentially being charged for the tires. That's something that we don't really think about, but if you return the car and the tires are literally, they have no thread on them, they could charge you up to $500 to $1,300 depending on the type of tire that they're planning to put on it. Also, early termination charges ranges from $200 to $500, and of course you get, if the car depreciated a lot, I mean, you're gonna get those charges too. So what people don't think about whenever they sign a lease contract, of course, yes, it's cheaper in the short term, but if you're leasing a car, you are leasing and renting a car forever. You're not really looking into the future. Here's a good example. Let me think. You're never really building wealth. I mean, you could have a lease car for 15 years, leasing it, and at the end of the day, you return the car and all that money is based, I mean, of course you use the car, but you don't have nothing to work with at the end of the day. Whenever you compare it to whenever you're purchasing a car, let's say you purchase a pretty good, decent price car, and you end up paying it in 4 years, but you keep it for making a total of 15 years. You're talking about the average, I mean, customer that pays for their car would be $500 a month. So you're looking almost $50,000 in those years that you kept the same car whenever you purchase the car, and not whenever you're leasing a car for 15 years. You will never really, that comes from the last point, wherever you're never really building wealth. If you're planning to look into the future, I do not recommend leasing a car, as that, I mean, it's never gonna work out, and I mean, you're always gonna be having to worry about, I have my car payment, my car due, just to rent it, you know. I mean, you never really have a car. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So why is it that people keep leasing? Of course, it feels good to have a fresh car every single year, or whenever your contract renews. I even like having a new car myself, but sometimes you have to understand that you have budgets, and you have to stay real with, I mean, your wealth, you know. Another thing would be, no one is really informed about the big picture. Whenever you walk into a dealership and they offer you this lease contract, I mean, they're telling you, look at the features on the car, look, it has Bluetooth. They don't really much tell you about, oh man, in 5 years you're gonna be leasing this car, and I mean, after that you return the car, and I mean, you have nothing. Which would bring to the last point, is just thinking short term. They don't think whenever you go up to a dealership and you see a fancy car that you really want but you can't afford, leasing might be the only option that you have, and you get so caught up in the moment. Like in the picture I have in my PowerPoint, is someone being hypnotized by the fancy car, and they're not really thinking about what they're signing. So it's so hard, and leaving a car plan is a headache. It's a signed contract, so I mean, they will make you pay either for the big amounts of the charges that they have to leaving contract early, or they will literally make you, I've heard about experiences where they make you pay no matter what to finish off the remaining of the lease. The last point would be, if you want to leave the lease without any penalties, you must find someone that will take over your lease plan. So I mean, I've seen ads on Facebook where it's literally says, I can't afford to pay this lease anymore, so I need someone to take over it. It's basically just desperate to find someone to take over their plan. Whenever someone leaves a lease plan, I mean, usually it's because they don't have any money to pay the next month. But to cancel the lease plan or the lease contract, you have to pay those charges to leave out of the contract early. So at the end of the day, I mean, you have to pay either way, you know. So it's like you're trapped. So with that being said, don't lease a car. I recommend you buying a car. I mean, it's the better option. If you're in a budget, I mean, you get a used car, finance it for 2-3 years, keep the car for a good couple of years, and you're saving yourself a lot of money. And you're stress-free. You don't have to worry about nothing, not going over miles, not having to worry about whenever you go into a parking spot, people not dinging your doors. It's your car, you know. Thank you so much for watching, and here are my works cited.